How to talk to boyfriend about children in the future. M23, M26. This is not about having children in the immediate future. I would want to wait at least 5-ish years or so it's not like this would happen ASAP. My boyfriend and I both 20s, him a couple years older, have been together for 3 years. Although we do not live together, I am with family, he's with roommates, the relationship is pretty serious. And my family really likes him, and the family of his that knows of me, not all are accepting like me. However, something I've tried talking about with him recently is children. When we met, we were kind of on the same page, both not completely sure but likely would want children. It would be brought up here and there since then, pretty informally, and as recently as a few months ago I thought we were in agreement about that. A couple months ago, I brought up the topic casually, not intending for it to be anything too deep. Just simply re-asking if he would like kids one day, as I've thought about it more and am more wanting to have kids. The TLDR of what he said, however, was that he's not in a place in his life to think too much about that right now. It caught me by surprise a little bit. After a little bit more talking, he did bring up some concerns: money, society in general, we are in the US, cost of childcare, and more, but did say if children were in the future he'd likely be fine with it and that he wasn't completely saying no. But he emphasized that he can't really think about it much right now. He is currently in school as am I, both of us seeking careers in education. He's not in any debt but has somewhat struggled because he does not have financial security, no full-time job yet, and does not have family to rely on, have help from like I do. He moved here for one of his college degrees from a different state. This I do recognize, but it didn't really make much sense to me that it wasn't something he could think about right now. But we kind of left it at that. I brought up this topic again to him the other day, starting with if he's thought more about the topic and how he feels about having kids. And I did appreciate that it was a more fleshed out conversation, though most of it was his thoughts and responses and feelings. He said that if children happen, awesome, but that he's nervous, unsure about raising especially young children such as toddlers. He also talked somewhat at length about economic considerations, which are something I can acknowledge. For example, he said things are getting more and more expensive, the economy isn't what it used to be, and he talked about his current economic situation, which is absolutely far from what would be ideal for having children. I know that, and at no point was I saying we should have kids soon. This conversation was just for me to talk about something important that should be addressed in any relationship. He comes from a working-class family and still feels as though he is a part of that group, and has admitted he's doing worse off than his parents despite him having an advanced degree, so to him it doesn't make sense to have kids because of economic reasons. He feels the idea of a child is not a smart economic investment. He added that there would likely be a decline in quality of life, which he doesn't think is smart for him currently either, because his quality of life isn't great, no secure employment yet, not having a ton in savings, living with roommates, society life changes, etc. He also briefly brought up quality of life for same couples, as the process of becoming parents is already more complicated and expensive for same couples. Again, at no point was I saying we should have kids now or in the next year or two. I am still in school too and want to wait at least 5-ish years. I tried asking him if his thoughts or feelings would change if it's adoption or biological. Although he said either option would be fine with him, he said that his answer is being provided if it has been decided we're having kids. In other words, if we were to have kids, either option is fine with him. But I was trying to ask him if his concerns, society, money, whatever, were still there under either option. Basically, I wanted to know if he was slightly against bringing a children into this world and was instead slightly in favor of helping take care of a children already born. That wasn't the case for him, as either option would be fine for him if it has been decided we're having kids. And that's what I was still trying to figure out from him. When I asked him directly if he wanted kids, he said it was too early in his professional life to be thinking about it and that it was not a top priority for him. When I pointed out that what he shared with me in this conversation shows he's put at least some thought into it, he slightly pushed back and said it's not where he's at in life yet, and it's not something for him to worry about right now. I tried asking for when that would be, such as after X years of working. He said something along the lines of when he can support, sustain, and provide for himself, and get married, then awesome, maybe he can think about that more. That caught me off guard, and I asked if he meant he would want to wait until after marriage to think about if he wants kids or not. He said, I don't know my name, it's just not where I am at yet in my life. That was the end of the conversation, as it was getting late. I did however say that we can pick up on this the next day or another time. I asked him today if there was anything he wanted to ask talk with me about on this topic. Most of it had been him sharing his thoughts and feelings, not much of me sharing mine, and I was instead mostly asking questions and providing thoughtful-ish responses. He said there wasn't anything more at this time, and I said okay. At no point was I trying to force him to make a decision right here and now. Although he almost certainly knows how I feel about this topic, that I do want children, I never outright said that during this conversation. I did say it though the last time we talked about this a couple months ago. Additional information: I do distinctly remember him saying at one point when he was around 17 to 18 or so, he thought he wanted several children. Of course, X years later, things change, especially as one becomes a fully fledged adult. But it's not like he's never thought about it. Also, on the topic of childcare, which is an extremely valid concern, I do have my parents who I want to have live with or live very close to me, which would address that concern. Yes, I know anything can happen, my parents won't be around forever, but that is my best response to childcare so that both me and my partner could work. Both my parents are retired. Also, my future profession in education is going to lead to a higher future salary than my partner's future salary, and together it's not bad at all, especially for where we live. I don't want to provide exact numbers, but together it is very comfortable in my opinion, especially based on the fact that my parents and sibling would still be with us. Also, a part of me truly does think my partner hasn't thought much about children and that he's not just making an excuse. But then again, another part of me wonders how much he actually has thought about children given his responses and given that we've been together for 3 years. It has crossed my mind that perhaps he is either still undecided or possibly leaning much more towards no children but does not want to have that hard conversation with me. When I asked when he thought he'd be able to think about having children or not, and he mentioned after being able to support himself, yes. That is extremely reasonable to want children only at that point, but I was a bit iffy about waiting until then to actually think about whether one wants children and after marriage wait, thinking about it after getting married. I did need clarification because I don't want this to be dragged out. I would get it if he was actively thinking about it and expressed some thoughts and concerns with me such as childcare, but I think I was a little worried of the possibility of this not being fully addressed until much later on in this relationship. I do not want to find out he doesn't want children after we are married, because at that point, divorce of course would be an option, but also depending where we are at in life when he finally has and communicates a more solid answer, it may not be realistic to divorce over this for even just the chance of having kids. Neither of us are female, so we don't have as much of a rush to have kids, but if I am going to have a biological children, which I do want, I do not want to wait until, say, my 40s. There's nothing wrong with that at all, but that is just my own personal preference. In fact, my parents weren't much older but were slightly older when they had me and my older sibling. And if this isn't fully decided on as we get closer to that point in our lives, I do worry it would lead to resentment if I am still wanting children but we as a couple would not have children if he does not want any, and divorce would not be as realistic of an option at that point. Yes, adoption would still be an option at that point if we decide to divorce because I want children and he doesn't, which is another additional consideration I have on my mind. So there's a lot to think about and consider here, but I am a bit lost as far as what to do and where to go from here. Although we love each other and want to be together, I do recognize that this is a common and extremely valid reason for couples to end a relationship or even marriage. There aren't any negative feelings between me and my partner at all, which would make this even more difficult as there's nothing inherently wrong or bad that would lead to a breakup other than simply one of us wanting children and the other doesn't. We would still love each other, and it would be a we can't be together type of situation. This is the first serious relationship for both of us, and I do think about my family too and how much my partner has bonded with my parents and sibling. I don't want us to break up. TLDR, both male, 20s, trying to talk to boyfriend about kids. Not in the immediate future would we have kids, ITDB in at least 5-ish years. Although he's telling me he's not at a place to think much about if he wants kids or not, he's shared several concerns such as money and quality of life and societal changes, and raising children when they are especially young. I do not want to break up, but I don't want there to be any resentment from either myself or my partner. What should I do?